Can Team India reach a double-digit medal tally?
The Olympics, it's a sweet bread, but it comes with pressure, for sure.
Watch Gunning for Glory through the Paris Olympics at these times on WION.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide, because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One.
Hello and a very warm welcome. You're watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Let's get started. Can Nobel Peace Prize winner Mohammad Yunus, the head of the interim government in Bangladesh, actually bring the much-needed peace to the country? Also, what next for the ousted leader Sheikh Hasina? Where will she go next? On Gravitas tonight, we focus on these questions and more as Bangladesh witnesses mayhem, chaos, horror, arson and communal violence. That's our top story tonight. And here's a look at what else is lined up for you on the show. Is Tim Walz China's man in America? Who is Harris's running mate for the election? What is his story? We get you a special report. Major heartbreak for India after wrestler Vinesh Fogart was disqualified from the Paris Olympics after weighing over the limit for the 50 kg event. We tell you all that you need to know. Did you know that cats actually grieve? Research finds that cats show indicators of grief. We tell you all about this. All this and more coming up tonight. Can Mohammad Yunus, the head of the interim government, end the horror of death, arson, carnage against minorities and the chaos in Bangladesh? In 2006, Yunus was given the Nobel Prize for Peace. But can he bring peace to his country when it needs it the most? Can he restore order and bring Bangladesh's suddenly faltering economy back on track? These are among the many questions being asked. You see, Bangladesh has become synonymous with utter chaos. According to estimates, over 200 people have been killed in the last 3 days. This morning, at least 20 bodies of Awami League leaders and their family members were recovered. Student leaders of the protest that brought down Sheikh Hasina nominated Yunus to the top job. And the army accepted this demand. Now, he is not young. Yunus is 84 years old, an entrepreneur, banker, economist, lauded for providing a bank for the poor, for which, by the way, he won a Nobel Peace Prize award nearly 2 decades ago. The 84-year-old now faces his biggest challenge. Former Prime Minister of Bangladesh, Sheikh Hasina, is gone. The demands of the agitation have been met. But why is there still rampant violence? Violence against the Awami League is still rampant across Bangladesh. There is a mood of vengeance across the land. As per reports, bodies of at least 20 leaders of the Awami League and their family members were recovered from across the country. Like we said, their houses and business establishments have been vandalized and looted. As per the latest reports, there are disturbing signs of rising anarchy. Fresh violence broke out in a Dhaka neighborhood on Wednesday. In a telling incident, hundreds of bank officials allegedly forced 4 deputy governors to resign over claims of corruption. In fact, across the country, there are multiple reports of mobs attacking Hindu houses and business establishments and looting valuables. More than 50 temples have been attacked across the country. A Hindu councillor has been killed, while another was reportedly lynched. Social media is filled with videos of incidents against Hindus. As per reports, violence against Hindus has been reported in nearly half of the country's districts. Nearly 8% of Bangladeshis, that's roughly 13 million people, are Hindus. They were living in harmony with the Muslims. Now, they seem to be trapped in terror. Aside from this, most schools, universities, banks and businesses, including a majority of the country's mainstay, the garments and the clothing factories, have been shut since mid-July. The country's economy is in shambles. In fact, reports estimate that the political turmoil has led to a loss of over $10 billion. Now, the Bangladesh Police Association has said that it is launching a strike across the country, citing a lack of security. So, if the police are afraid, who is safe? A communal and partisan monster seems to have been let loose upon the land. The police have reportedly said that they would not return to work unless their safety is assured. This is what Bangladesh is looking like right now. And in the absence of the traffic police, students could be seen managing traffic in the national capital, Dhaka. The question remains, is Yunus even up to this challenge? You see, the alibis are over. The story has moved on from that. He has to deliver. He has promised elections within a few months. But if the chaos continues, the country will be ravaged before the elections. Meanwhile, the opposition leader, Khaleda Zia, was released from house arrest yesterday. Zia, a longtime rival of Hasina, was convicted of corruption charges by Hasina's government in the year 2018. Today, she made a speech at a rally stating that the so-called victory will bring new opportunities for Bangladesh.
The corruption which has been going on in the country for so many days was ignored by the government. Amid all this, we must make Bangladesh prosperous again. For the students who gave up on their dreams by getting involved in bloodshed, we will fulfill those dreams. Students have shown great intellect, courage and bravery while fighting, which will help us in making Bangladesh a republic.
Now, coincidentally, Zia's son and BNP's acting chairman, Tariq Rahman, is also set to return to Dhaka. Rahman is supposedly the man behind the India Out campaign that began in the country following Hasina's return as Prime Minister in the year 2008. India has had strong ties, especially in trade with Bangladesh during Hasina's tenure. How Yunus handles the country's ties with India and other countries remains to be seen. As per reports, the interim government is expected to have a mix of former bankers, defense personnel, politicians, student representatives, former members from educational institutions, among others. Reports say Yunus is expected to arrive in Dhaka on Thursday following a minor medical procedure in Paris. The reports do not disclose more about Yunus's health issue or the duration of his ongoing stay in France. Now, so far, Yunus has praised and congratulated the forces that put him in power. In an official statement, he said that the student protests in Bangladesh marked the country's second victory day. He has also appealed to people to stay calm, refrain from all kinds of violence, and get ready to build the country. But then, are words enough? And is anyone even listening? He surely believes his words will have an impact, cautioning that violence will destroy everything and promising to hold elections. His statements are a stark contrast to what happened earlier this year when he distanced himself from entering politics. Whether Yunus will play a temporary role and step back after elections is uncertain. Whether he will bring much needed stability to Bangladesh or have things already reached a point of no return, that remains the big question. We don't know the answer to that. What we are certain about, though, is that his immediate task is to stabilize a country in utter turmoil. So that is what is happening in Bangladesh. Let's now also talk about its ousted leader, Sheikh Hasina. What's next for her? Hasina, remember, resigned from office on Monday, and soon after she reached India. Sheikh Hasina arrived at the Hindon Air Force Station near Delhi. India's External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, spoke about the moments leading to Hasina's arrival in India. Addressing India's parliament, the minister said, and I'm quoting here, "At very short notice, Sheikh Hasina requested approval to come for the moment to India. We simultaneously received requests for flight clearance from authorities in Bangladesh," quote unquote. Notice the use of the word moment. Hasina requested to come to India for the moment. This was on Monday. 2 days on, the ousted leader remains in India. In fact, reports say she is staying in a safe house. How long will she stay in India? We don't know. Where will she go from India? Again, we don't know. In the hours leading to and following her arrival in India, reports said that Sheikh Hasina was in fact headed to London, that she was only stopping by in India. From aircraft refueling to paperwork, reports speculated all possible reasons for her stop in India. But soon, reports began circulating about the UK allegedly not responding to Hasina's request for asylum. There were also reports suggesting that the United States has revoked Hasina's visa. Now, what have these countries said so far is the immediate question. British authorities are citing the country's immigration rules. They say that the UK does not allow individuals to travel to the country to seek asylum or temporary refuge, both of which can be applied by those already staying in the UK. For those outside the country, the UK says such individuals must seek asylum in the first safe country they reach, which puts the ball in India's court. But why the UK? Why does Sheikh Hasina reportedly want to relocate to the UK? Sheikh Hasina has family there. Hasina's younger sister, Sheikh Rehana, who is believed to be currently accompanying her, is a citizen of the UK, in fact. Also, her niece, Tulip Siddique is a British parliamentarian. She is a Labour MP for Hampstead and Highgate. Tulip Siddique is also the Economic Secretary to the Treasury in the new Labour government. Perhaps that could be the reason why Hasina thought she could easily stay in the UK. Sheikh Hasina's son, Sajib Wazed, denies this speculation though. He told the Indian media that his mother has not sought asylum in the UK or in any other country. He said Sheikh Hasina's plan is to spend time with her family. So where is Sheikh Hasina's family? Sajib Wazed lives in Washington. We already told you that Hasina's sister lives in the UK, as does her niece. Sheikh Hasina's daughter, Saima Wazed, lives in Delhi. She is the regional chief of the World Health Organization. Will Hasina stay with her? We don't know. But like I told you, it's only a momentary stay that authorities in India are talking about. So where will Sheikh Hasina go next? As per some reports, Sheikh Hasina is also considering Saudi Arabia as her next destination. The UAE and Finland are among the other names that have come up in reports. Our next story is about a major heartbreak for India at the Paris Olympics. If you have been following the news, you already know what I'm talking about. Wrestler Vinesh Phogat has been disqualified from the Paris Olympics after weighing over the limit for the 50 kg event. The disqualification happened on the day she was scheduled to fight for the gold medal at the Games. But the 29-year-old will now return home without a medal. And with that, 1 billion hearts were left broken. Phogat was reportedly over the permissible weigh limit by just 100 grams. She was supposed to take on Tokyo 2020 bronze medalist Sarah Hildebrandt for the gold medal. Phogat usually competes in the 53 kg category and had to cut down to the 50 kg category for the Paris Olympics. Cuba's Yusnelis Guzman Lopez, who lost to Phogat in the semi-finals, has been named as the Indians' replacement for the gold medal bout. The Indian Olympic Association President P.T. Usha, meanwhile, has said that they have lodged a complaint with the International Olympic Committee regarding the disqualification. Listen in.
Vinesh disqualification is very shocking, and I met Vinesh at the Olympic Village Polyclinic a short while ago and assured her complete support of the Indian Olympic Association, Government of India and the whole country. We are providing Vinesh all medical and emotional support. The Wrestling Federation of India has filed an appeal to UWW to consider the decision to disqualify Vinesh, and IOA is following that up in the strongest possible manner.
Now, let's just break this down for you. What exactly do the rules really state? A wrestler has to weigh within the limit of their respective categories on both days of the competition. On Tuesday morning, Vinesh Phogat was below the required 50 kg mark and weighed 49.9 kgs and was therefore allowed to compete. She went on to win 3 bouts to reach the final. But after winning her semi-final clash, her weight was around 52 kgs. And despite desperate attempts to get to the required 50 kg mark on Tuesday night, Phogat could not get her weight below the 50.1 kg mark today morning and was subsequently disqualified.
The coach initiated the normal process of weight cut that he has always employed with Vinesh. This is something that's worked with her for a long period of time. He felt confident that this would be achieved, and over the night we went ahead with the weight cut procedure. However, in the morning we found that despite all of our efforts, her weight was 100 grams over her 50 kilogram weight category. We had tried all possible drastic measures throughout the night, including cutting off her hair, shortening her clothes, and despite all of this, we could not make that 50 kg weight category.
So you see, Fogart did everything possible throughout the night to reduce her weight to the required mark without endangering her life. Dr. Dinshaw Pardiwala, who is the Chief Medical Officer of the Indian contingent there, summarized what happened on Tuesday night. We just played out that bite for you. And our sports editor, Digvijay Singh Deo, has been tracking those developments very closely. He sent us this report from Paris. Take a look.
Winning and losing is part of sport. But what has happened here this Wednesday is heartbreaking. Having covered sport for 21 years and 4 Olympic Games, this has been an unprecedented development. The only priority right now is Vinesh Fogart's health, both physical and mental. Sport always gives you a second chance. Everything else is secondary. In Paris, this is Digvijay Singh Deo for WION.
At the Olympics, rules may be rules for everyone, but when it comes to China, let's just say it seems to be playing by different rules. At the Olympics, what the Chinese Communist Party government says goes, period. Let me explain this for you. Early this week, a dramatic incident took place during the men's doubles badminton final. It was not in the badminton court, it was on the bleachers. A fan had her banner ripped from her hands and torn up. What was her crime? She was holding a banner reading, I'm quoting, "Let's go Taiwan." Just have a look at what happened. Hey. Did you see that? The fan holding the banner was first blocked by a man, who then goes on to snatch it from her hands. All this happened in the presence of the Olympic security personnel. Now, of course, the International Olympic Committee has some stringent rules for spectators. No national flags, no political messages. But this particular fan was not holding up a flag or any banner with political messaging. So then why was it ripped away from her hands by a man in the presence of the French authorities? Don't fans have the right to hold up banners to show support? If these questions came to your mind, they are completely valid. Fans, of course, have the right to show support to their team. But this is the Olympics, and the International Olympic Committee is known for its questionable decisions. You see, for decades, Olympians from Taiwan, formerly known as the Republic of China, have had to compete under the team name Chinese Taipei. This rule is strictly enforced by the International Olympic Committee, IOC. Why? Because it faces pressure from the Chinese Communist Party government, which, as you know, claims Taiwan as Chinese territory that it intends to invade one day. Look, it's no secret that the Chinese government uses its influence to shrink as much of Taiwan's international space that it can, whether that is at the United Nations or any other global platform. So its hefty influence on the IOC should not come as a surprise then. But if you thought that the extent of China's influence on the IOC ends here, you are mistaken. Early this year, it was revealed that 23 Chinese swimmers tested positive for banned drug. Months before the Tokyo Olympics in 2021, they were still cleared to compete at the Games. How exactly? The World Anti-Doping Agency had accepted an explanation from the Chinese authorities that the kitchen at their hotel was contaminated. The Chinese swimmers had tested positive for TMZ, a performance-enhancing heart drug. But of course, nothing was made public at the time. The revelations came this year after a joint investigation by the German TV channel ARD and the New York Times. It led to widespread criticism of WADA, with people calling it a devastating stab in the back to clean athletes. The Chinese swimmers had won medals at the Tokyo Games, including 3 golds. It's common knowledge within the sporting world that International Olympic Committee, IOC, and other sports bodies have time and again allowed China to investigate its own scandals, which inevitably produces proclamations of innocence. But what other choice do they even have? If outside investigation is allowed, China would likely stymie them too by refusing to cooperate, and it has happened in the past, by the way. Plus, the IOC has its own corruption problem. It does not have the courage to confront as important a participant and funder as China. Which then brings us back to today. The ripping apart of the banner reading "Go Taiwan" has angered the country. Naturally, Taiwan's foreign ministry described the incident that took place on Monday as violent and against Olympic values of friendship and respect. It called on the French authorities to investigate. But IOC has not condemned the incident. Instead, it has said that there are very clear rules disallowing banners. They are not completely wrong, though. You see, the name Chinese Taipei dates back to Taiwan's former authoritarian rulers who competed with Beijing to officially represent China on the international stage. In fact, in 1976, they rejected an offer from the IOC to compete as Team Taiwan instead of Republic of China. And fast forward to today, under apparent pressure from the current CCP regime, the IOC refuses to let Taiwan compete under its national name. Of course, the West views the IOC stance as uniquely irrational. US politicians have pointed out that territories like the British territory of Bermuda or the US territory of Puerto Rico are all allowed to compete under their own name. Then why not allow Taiwan to compete at the Olympics as Taiwan? Since that is how the people of this self-ruled island identify themselves. Naturally, the incident sparked massive outrage from the Taiwanese people, but they are channeling their anger in their own unique way. One sign at the badminton finals cheered on the land of bubble tea. Another spelled out Taiwan with pictures of food. It's a lesson for China and for anyone else watching. You can try to bend the rules to suit your narrative, but you cannot break the spirit of the people. Our next story is about the US, Iran, and a dangerous murder-for-hire plot. Did Iran send a Pakistani man to try and assassinate former US President Donald Trump? On Tuesday, the US Justice Department charged a Pakistani man with alleged ties to Iran in connection with the failed plot to assassinate American politicians and officials. 46-year-old Asif Merchant allegedly sought to recruit people in the US to carry out the plot in retaliation for the US killing of a top Iranian commander, Qasem Soleimani. Remember, he was killed by the US in the year 2020. The Pakistani man arrested is accused of attempting to hire a hitman in New York to kill prominent American officials, Trump being one of them reportedly. As former president, Trump had approved the drone strike on Soleimani, remember. According to Reuters, Trump was discussed as a potential target of the plot. But the scheme was not conceived of as a plot to assassinate him. Remember, security for Trump was increased in the month of June after authorities learned of an Iranian plot to assassinate him. Asif Merchant was arrested in July and is being held in New York. FBI Director Christopher Wray described the Iranian plot to target US officials a dangerous murder-for-hire plot straight out of the Iranian playbook. He said, and I'm quoting, "A foreign-directed plot to kill a public official or any US citizen is a threat to our national security and will be met with the full might and resources of the FBI," quote unquote. According to the US Justice Department's indictment, Merchant arrived in the US from Pakistan in April after having spent time in Iran. After reaching the US, he allegedly contacted a person whom he believed could help with the assassination plot. That unnamed contact later reported Merchant to the American police. Merchant allegedly made a finger gun motion with his hand when talking about what he wanted to do. The indictment said the job would not be a one-time opportunity and that contact services would be needed on an ongoing basis. Merchant allegedly told the contact that he had planned to leave the US before targets were killed and he would stay in contact using code words. He also allegedly asked the contact to arrange a meeting with the would-be assassins. In June, the contact then connected him to undercover FBI agents who were posing as hitmen. Merchant allegedly told the undercover agents they were to steal documents from the home of a target, arrange protests at political rallies, and kill an unnamed political person. According to the indictment, Merchant said the targets would be communicated in the last week of August or the first week of September. While the indictment does not mention Trump by name, several news outlets said that the former president was one of the intended targets. Now, it's important to note here that this plot is unrelated to the assassination attempt on Donald Trump that took place last month in Pennsylvania. 20-year-old Thomas Matthew Crooks was shot and killed by a Secret Service sniper on site for the assassination attempt. Trump and officials, including his former Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, have faced threats from Iran since ordering the drone strike assassination of Qasem Soleimani, the commander of Iran's Quds Force in Iraq in 2020. Tuesday marked a significant moment in American politics as Minnesota Governor Tim Walz stepped into the spotlight as Vice President Kamala Harris's running mate. Walz, though not a household name, is set to play a pivotal role in Harris's bid for US presidency. In fact, Walz has also drawn attention from halfway across the world, China, to be specific. Our next report telling you more about this.
Kamala Harris, having secured the Democratic nomination for the November election, has chosen Tim Walz as her running mate. Harris described Walz as a dedicated public servant, highlighting his diverse background as a governor, coach, teacher, and veteran who has consistently championed the cause of working families. In her announcement on social media platform X, Harris expressed her enthusiasm about having Walz on her team. Walz declared his full commitment to the campaign, likening this new journey to the excitement of the first day at school. As running mates, they are the faces of the campaign, making their influence and public presence vital. So who exactly is Tim Walz and what does he bring to the table? At 60, Walz has a rich blend of executive and legislative experience. Elected as Minnesota's governor in 2018 and re-elected in 2022, Walz has proven his electoral strength in a state that does not always lean Democratic. His victories in this traditionally swing state demonstrate his broad appeal and political acumen. The Minnesota governor was a history teacher and football coach before he joined politics and spent a year teaching in southeastern province of Guangdong in 1989. Describing his decision to teach in China as one of the best things he has ever done. And a few years later, he started a business with his wife, organizing summer educational trips to China for US students. His time in China has garnered major attention on social media, especially in China. On the policy front, Walz is known for advancing left-wing priorities. even in a swing state. Over the past 6 years, he has implemented numerous programs. These include covering college tuition for low-income students, providing free meals in public schools, and expanding workers' protections. His defense of abortion rights and commitment to transitioning Minnesota to carbon-free electricity by 2040 further underscore his progressive credentials. Republicans may argue that Walz's policies are too liberal. Walz, on his part, has embraced this label, pointing out the positive outcomes of his policies: meals for children, women making their own healthcare decisions, and Minnesota's high rankings in business and happiness. But Walz's influence isn't limited to domestic issues. The US approach to the conflict in Gaza and the broader West Asia tensions is a significant topic this election cycle. Walz has shown strong support for Israel, ordering flags to be at half-staff in solidarity after the October 7 attack by Hamas. His pro-Israel position dates back to his time in Congress, where he consistently backed the US ally. However, Walz also acknowledges the shifting sentiment within his party. Earlier this year, nearly 19% of Democratic voters in Minnesota cast uncommitted votes, signaling dissatisfaction with President Biden's unwavering support for Israel. Walz recognized this frustration, asserting that these voters deserve to be heard and indicating a potential openness to re-evaluating the US approach. Walz's selection as running mate reflects a strategic choice to balance experience, progressive values, and electoral appeal. As the campaign progresses, Walz's role will be crucial in shaping the narrative and elevating the Democratic base. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
We now shift our focus to Britain, where the intensity of the riots continues to rise unabated. It has shaken communities to the core and raised significant questions about the state of the UK society. The grief of families mourning the victims of a brutal stabbing rampage last week has been exploited by far-right groups. Let's just break down the events and the implications for you. Protests that began peacefully escalated into chaos in over a dozen towns and cities across Britain. From Aldershot in the south to Sunderland in the north and Liverpool in the west to Belfast in Northern Ireland, violence has spread like wildfire. Consider the events in Rotherham, where rioters targeted a hotel housing asylum seekers. As per reports, they shattered windows and stormed the building, forcing the police into a desperate struggle to maintain control. Nobody was injured, but the scene was one of sheer terror. In Middlesbrough, masked individuals reportedly hurled bottles and rocks at police officers, ignited cars, leading to numerous arrests. Liverpool saw arson attacks on a library and a food bank, while Hull's city centre was left in ruins with fires and smashed storefronts. These acts of violence are not isolated incidents, by the way. They are part of a broader pattern of disorder and destruction that is no longer just a localized issue, but a nationwide crisis. But what really sparked this wave of violence? It all began with a horrific knife attack at a children's dance class last week in Southport, a seaside town near Liverpool. 3 children lost their lives, 8 others were wounded. The suspect, born and raised in Britain of Rwandan descent, quickly became the center of a storm of disinformation. Rumors quickly spread online that he was an undocumented Muslim immigrant, a claim that the authorities debunked by revealing his identity a few days later. However, the damage was done. As per reports, with immigration already a contentious issue, far-right extremists seized on the falsehood to incite their followers. The question that soon became the focal point was, will the authorities manage to quell the violence and bring those responsible to justice? The Prime Minister K.S. Tamer's government, barely a month into its term, faces its first major crisis. In response, thousands of police officers have been deployed nationwide, armed with special powers to disperse gatherings. Over 400 arrests have been made and about 100 individuals charged. Prime Minister Tamer has condemned the riots as quote-unquote far-right thuggery and urged the prosecutors to swiftly bring those responsible to justice. But is that response enough? Can it actually stem the tide of anger and misinformation that continues to fuel these riots? As per reports, police are monitoring at least 30 locations where far-right groups have called for demonstrations. Areas like Kent, Liverpool, Rotherham, already scarred by violence, are on high alert. London also braces for potential clashes, with authorities warning of events planned by hateful and divisive groups, quote-unquote. In fact, the reports further highlight that counter-protests against racism and xenophobia are also expected, setting the stage for possible confrontations. As per experts, the political implications of these riots are profound. For the Prime Minister, this is baptism by fire. His Labour Party, having recently ousted the Conservatives after 14 years in power, now faces the challenge of addressing this major crisis. The Conservative Party has also joined in condemning the violence. Former Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, now leading the opposition, emphasized that the unrest is unrelated to the tragedy in Southport, expressing full support for the police's efforts to restore order. And amid all this, the families of the victims in Southport are in mourning. Their grief compounded by the chaos that has followed. Their tragedy, their trauma, has been hijacked by the far-right groups, turning a moment of sorrow into a catalyst for violence. The situation in Britain is a stark reminder of the fragility of social order in the face of disinformation and extremism. The coming days will be crucial for the UK. Let's now shift focus. Boeing's mid-air panel blowout incident in January continues to haunt the company. Despite announcing changes to design and advanced safety measures, workers claim a high-pressure environment as the reason for the mishaps. Our next report telling you more.
Boeing has announced plans to implement design changes. This is to prevent future mid-air incidents like the one involving an Alaska Airlines 737 MAX 9 in January. The aircraft experienced a door plug blowout due to missing bolts, which Boeing attributes to a lapse in documentation and oversight. The company aims to retrofit the fleet with new safety features within the year to address these issues and prevent recurrence. The National Transportation Safety Board's investigation into the incident highlighted serious deficiencies in Boeing's manufacturing processes. The door plug was improperly secured and crucial bolts were missing when the plane left the factory. Investigators found that Boeing's quality control failures, including poor documentation and communication lapses, contributed to the blowout and the subsequent grounding of the 737 MAX 9. Meanwhile, workers at Boeing have expressed concerns about excessive workloads and inadequate training contributing to the errors that led to the January incident. Testimonies from employees reveal a stressful work environment, with some feeling pressured to cut corners to meet production targets. Moreover, the company has been hit with a drastic 70% drop in sales this year. Boeing also faces potential criminal charges and increased oversight complicating its recovery efforts. These conditions, along with high turnover and low morale, have been identified as factors impacting safety and quality at Boeing. Business Bureau WION, World is One.
Those pitching cats against dogs often say that, unlike dogs, cats have no sense of attachment. With time, this has become the popular notion around cats. But how true is this really? Sure, cats love to stray. They are fiercely independent and may not like the kind of attention that dogs do. But research suggests that cats too are emotionally attached to those around them. Researchers in Auckland University studied over 400 cats. The long-term and short-term behavior of these cats was studied following the death of another family pet. Guess what the researchers found? Cats showed indicators of grief. Cats appeared to grieve the death of fellow pets, even dogs. Some cats struggled to sleep. Some went off food. Others made noises. Some cats were even more needy around their caregivers following the death of a family pet. There were also some cats who went off their favorite games. Obviously, this behavior varied and they were dependent on how much the cats were attached to the fellow pet. The researchers noted, and I'm quoting here, the longer the cat had lived with the deceased animal, the more the caregivers reported increase in attention seeking following the deaths, quote unquote. The cat's behavior was also dependent on how close its caregiver was to the deceased animal. This, the researchers say, suggests that cats might be mirroring their caregiver's grief. What does all of this tell you? Have we been mischaracterizing cats? Have they been misunderstood? Possibly. So the next time someone tells you cats are not social, or they are aloof, or not attached to those around them, send them this story. India's luxury car market is experiencing a growth spurt. Sales have skyrocketed, driven by a younger, wealthier clientele. But what really is the future of luxury in India? Will EV luxury cars become mainstream? Our next report getting you the complete story.
India's luxury car market is revving up. As per data, cumulative sales of 7 luxury car makers in 2024 were over 45,000 units, up 20.5% compared to last year. In terms of market share, Mercedes-Benz tops the list with 37% market share. BMW is slowly closing in with a 32% market share. Audi, Land Rover and Mini are also major players in the market. BMW recently launched its long-wheel Base 5 series model for Indian roads. Mr. Jean-Philippe Parrain, Senior Vice President BMW Group, spoke to WION regarding the company's focus on the Indian market.
India is one of the last very large country with a big potential for premium cars and for BMW. So we are looking at India with a lot of dedication, a lot of attention. We had many visits of our board members in the country to understand better what's happening here. I'm myself very often here. I'm here in July. I will be again in August in the country. So I'm really looking at in detail the trends, the development, the I would say dynamism of the market, and we are trying to take the best decisions in terms of product introduction, investments and everything.
This also comes as major luxury brands beyond automakers are looking to diversify from China amid slowdown. While the country remains the world's largest market, the China Plus One strategy is slowly gaining traction.
The Chinese economy is a bit more under pressure at the moment, that the consumer sentiment is less strong than it has been in the last years. You see that also in the figures from other industry, luxury industry. But you know, China remains the biggest market by far worldwide for BMW. So even if it's a bit more difficult, it remains a very, very important and strong market. Just not growing as fast as it used to grow.
On the topic of electrification of cars and the way forward in the luxury segment, Florian Kunstner, Vice President Mini, spoke to WION on his own experience driving electric vehicles.
I think the one challenge I see is that a lot of people talk about it without actually experiencing it. Yeah? So even myself, at the beginning, I was maybe also hesitant. But once you drive an electric car, you actually see that it's a lot of fun.
India's luxury car market, while expanding, still represents a small fraction of the overall automotive market. High import duties and infrastructure challenges are hurdles. However, the potential for growth is immense. With a rising affluent population and evolving consumer preferences, the industry is optimistic. Business Bureau, WION World is One.
Time now for Gravitas Recall. On this day in 1974, French street artist Philippe Petit walked on a tightrope between the Twin Towers in New York. It was the most famous high wire walk in history. Petit displayed calm, traversing the space between the Twin Towers at a height of 1,350 feet in just a span of 15 minutes, completing 8 trips across the divide, bowing to the onlookers below and even stopping to sit and lie down on the inch-thick wire. Finally, dismounting and surrendering to the police, who arrested him and took him in for psychological evaluation. He was charged with criminal trespassing as well as disorderly conduct, but charges were dropped on the condition that he performed for the public in Central Park, which he happily did. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Gravitas Tonight. This is me, Molly Gambhir, signing off. Thanks very much for watching.
Namaste. Hello, friends. We did Dr. Subhash Chandra show, popularly known as DSC show, for 4 years, from August 2014 to August 2018. 28 states of Bharat. Of course, we reached out to all of you in 190 countries across the world. The show was very successful. Each episode was being watched by almost 25 million people every week. For past 6 years, the demand of the show has never died down. People write to us, people ask for the show to restart again. Hence, we are beginning the show once again on All Z Network, also on WION, which is the global network channel from India. Again, thank you for your love and affection. See you soon at Subhash Chandra Show.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at yoursarthi@such.org.in.
Everyone loves a contest. But sport isn't just about victory and defeat. When the GOATs in sport speak, you hear it first on WION.
You have to play good cricket over a period of time.
I actually pushed myself right out of the damn tournament.
We go beyond the stats. Our stories are quoted the world over.
At WION, sport is part of our DNA. Come, join us on this journey. Weekdays 6:30 p.m. IST, 1 p.m. GMT.
Anger, protests, death and curfews since Nigerians nationwide rallied for the first of the 10 planned Days of Rage over a deepening cost of living crisis. President Bola Tinubu appeals for protests to end after bloodshed. Kenya introduces slam dams to various regions in efforts to protect communities from floods. And meet wild, charming, smart courage, a male catwalk coach who is changing the stereotypes about fashion. Wild of Africa at these times on WION, Wild is One.
everyone loves a contest. But sport isn't just about victory and defeat. When the GOATs in sport speak, you hear it first on WION.
You have to play good cricket over a period of time.
I actually pushed myself right out of the damn tournament.
We go beyond the stats. Our stories are quoted the world over.
At WION, sport is part of our DNA. Come, join us on this journey. Weekdays 6:30 p.m. IST, 1 p.m. GMT.
On WION World is One. Thank you very much for joining us at this hour. I'm Eric Njoka. The headlines. Hamas military wing releases footage to show attacks on Israeli armored vehicles in Rafah, claims planned ambush in the name of Hamas political chief Ismail Haniyeh's assassination in Tehran last week.
يحاول إن شاء الله تقدم الأمر.
Turkey files its official request to join South Africa's genocide case against Israel over war in Gaza in the International Court of Justice. Russian army claims Ukrainian offensive in Kursk region has been halted after 1,000 Ukrainian personnel went on an offensive to seize territory. Russian forces stopped them by airstrikes and artillery fire.